Hey guys, welcome back. It's Adam the Science Tutor, and today we're going to be talking about the flexor muscles of the forearm. So these are all flexor muscles. They help us flex the forearm. They help us do multiple things. There's a lot of diseases or nerve damages that can occur, which could cause like clawed hand, and etc. We'll get to that in another video. But right now, I have it broken down for you guys. You'll see there's a lot of commonalities. So it's kind of a scary subject, the flexor forearm muscles, because there's so many muscles in just right here. So it's intimidating, but there's a lot of common areas. So the origin, if you see a missing origin spot, I'm gonna get to it in a bit. I'm gonna probably repeat it like a million times in this video, but they're all the same except for the deep origins. So, and then there's 4 superficial muscles, there's 1 intermediate, and 3 deep. Easy way to remember that is 4 minus 1 equals 3. So you have 4 superficial, 1 intermediate, and the 3 deep muscles. We're going to start with the superficial muscles. And to get started, we have an easy way to remember it. There's pass, fail, pass, fail. P's for your first, and you could cup your forearm like this, and you have Pronator, Arteries, Flexor, Carpi, Radialis, because that's on your radial side, your radius bone. And then you got your palmaris longus, and then you got your Flexor, Carpi, Ulnaris for your ulnar side. So as you can see, they're all missing the origins. Pronator, Arteries, it's missing its origin also. So it's because they're all sharing the same origin, and the origin comes from the humerus. So it's the common flexor tendon of the medial epicondyle of the humerus. So that's gonna be the same one here, same one here, same one here, same one here. Even the same on the Pronator Arteries. So I'll repeat it again. It's the common flexor tendon of the medial epicondyle of the humerus. I know it's a chunk, but I'm gonna write that down and I'm gonna send that to you guys too. It's gonna be in a document below. All right, so Pronator Arteries. What do we need to know about Pronator Arteries? Well, it inserts. So inserts here. So watch where you're going with your fingers. This is the perfect trick. Remember, pass, fail, pass, fail. So you got your Pronator Arteries first, and it's gonna insert on your lateral side of your radius. So it wraps around. It's the lateral side of your radius. The arteries are going to be a little difficult. That's just going to be a lot of memorization. How I did it, it's odd to me because most of them are going to be the ulnar recurrent arteries. So it's the first one I like to remember. It inserts at the anterior surface of the anterior lateral surface of the radius, and therefore anterior. I just reuse the word, and it's anterior ulnar recurrent artery. So it's anterior ulnar recurrent artery. So that means it's a recurrent artery. It's coming back up into the muscle. The nerves of the superficial and intermediate muscles are shared. So this one's also going to be repeating median nerve. So most median nerve will do it'll innervate nearly all the muscles in the forearm. Try to memorize the exceptions. So the exceptions, you're going to have Flexor Carpi Ulnaris is an exception to that, and Flexor Digitorum profundus. The deep ones are a little different, but the rest of them will be a median nerve. Cool. So that was our Flexor Carpi other Pronator Arteries. Our Flexor Carpi Radialis. Easy way to remember that. So we already did the Pronator Arteries, Flexor Carpi Radialis. Look, watch where it goes. It's going radialis. It's going to the radius side. So it's a flexor because it's a flexor forearm muscle. Carpi, that just means it's inserting at the carpi. So it's inserting at a bone side. Radialis side. So it's coming up on your thumb side towards the radius bone. So it inserts at the base of the second and third metacarpals. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 2 and 3 right here. And it inserts in here. It's going to be, this is another exception. So that's the radial artery. And I'll tell you another trick. How do you remember the arteries? I think that's the hardest part to remember. But you have anterior ulnar recurrent artery, then you have radial artery. It's like your brake. Then you'll have posterior ulnar recurrent artery for the last 2. But you have your radial artery. It makes sense because you're on your radial side, and it's your radial side, so it makes sense. So the primary action of the Flexor Carpi Radialis is to abduct the hand. So I'm abducting my hand right now. And you have limited ability to abduct the hand because of your radius bone and the protrusion out there. I forgot to mention pronator teres. It's in the name. What is its action? Pronate. So you have supinate and then pronate. So pronator teres, it's in the name. It's pronating. Okay, cool. So flexor carpi radialis is pretty easy. So that's your pass, fail, pass. Palmaris longus is an interesting muscle. It's actually absent in about 14% of the population. Cool little trivia knowledge. So it inserts at the palmar aponeurosis. Origin is the same as I had said before, the common flexor tendon of the medial epicondyle of the humerus. Same origin. Insertion is palmar aponeurosis, so that's right in here. And then this is when so you had your break of your artery, and this is where your ulnar recurrent artery comes back. I do think the arteries are the hardest to remember on the superficial muscles of the flexor forearm. But posterior ulnar recurrent artery, so it was anterior down here, that's your only anterior ulnar recurrent artery, and now you have your posterior ulnar recurrent artery. And the action with it, so it inserts at the palmar aponeurosis, it clinches. The palmar aponeurosis comes together and it clenches your fist. So if you see that, you can see on your own hands where it's going to be tied at, unless you're missing it, of course. And palmaris, that's the place where it's going to, so that's a Q in the name. Longus is actually for the it's longest for the tendon. So when you see it on the inside of a cadaver, you'll see a long tendon, not necessarily a long muscle, but a long tendon. And then we have flexor carpi ulnaris is one of our exceptions. So the origin is this is going to be the same. It's going to be the common flexor tendon of the medial epicondyle of the humerus. Its insertion is going to be the fifth metacarpal, which makes sense because it's pronator teres, flexor carpi radialis, palmaris longus, and then flexor carpi ulnaris. It's on the ulnar side, so it's going to go up to the fifth metacarpal, which is your pinky. Then it's going to have the same repeating posterior ulnar recurrent artery. So it's the same artery as the palmaris longus, which makes it easy. So you had anterior ulnar recurrent artery, then you had a break, you had a radial artery, and then we have now two back-to-back posterior ulnar recurrent arteries. This is your exception. So all in all, these all have median nerves. So these are all innervated by median nerves. Even our intermediate one here in a bit. We'll talk about that. But median nerve, median nerve, median nerve. An exception. Remember your exceptions. Ulnar nerve, which makes sense because we're on the ulnar. You're on your ulnar side of you're next to your ulnar bone. You're on the ulnar side. So ulnar side is towards your pinky. Radial side is towards your thumb. And then the action for this is it adducts the hand. So it adducts this way. So I can adduct my hand and then I abduct my hand. AD adduct, AB abduct. So, and there's no bone here preventing me from moving my hand like this. There's a bone right here that limits my motion. So cool. That is the superficial muscles. Remember, pass, fail for the superficial muscles. They all share the same nerve, median nerve, with the exception of flexor carpi ulnaris. They all share the same origin, which is awesome. And then remember, we have the anterior ulnar recurrent artery, and then we have a break with a radial artery. This is our exception here. And then we have posterior twice, back to back, posterior ulnar recurrent artery, back to back. So if you move back that flap of muscle, so these are superficial muscles. Right under it is this big guy right here, and that's going to be huge to our ability to use our hands. So its origin is what? You guys can probably say it out loud. It is the common flexor tendon of the medial epicondyle of the humerus, which is like right in here. So that's my medial epicondyle right around here. So that's the same, so that's shared. So it's insertion, so it's the shafts of the middle phalanges of 2 through 5. So 2, 3, 4, and 5, you'll see the flexors, you'll see the tendons, and they'll protrude out. You'll see them around your wrist, where you'll see the tendons come out, and they will go 4 different ways. Some people it'll go 3, and then it'll split later, but most people 4 they'll have 4 tendons coming out. This one I feel like is an oddball too. The artery is the radial artery. I think it's odd because it doesn't do much for the thumb, but I'm assuming the radial artery just runs through and it catches on, and it is the blood for the. I didn't even mention the name. So it is the Flexor Digitorum Superficialis. So flexor because it's a flexor, forearm muscle. Digitorum Superficialis. So it inserts at the shafts of the middle phalanges 2 through 5. Its blood supply comes from the radial artery, and that's I think it's an oddball. I should start. Nerve, median nerve, just like the rest. So all of them have a median nerve except for the flexor carpi ulnaris. And then action, of course, what does it do? It flexes our 2 through 5 digits, our phalanges. So that's our Flexor Digitorum Superficialis. And that's our intermediate. That's our 1 intermediate. So we have 4 minus 1 equals 3. So we have 3 deep muscles. You have your Flexor Digitorum Profundus, and then Flexor Pollicis Longus, and then your Pronator Quadratus. Yeah, see, there's a lot of muscles, so it jumbles my brain sometimes as well. So for the Flexor Pollicis Longus, it's always the one I start with when I'm naming or talking about them. Flexor Pollicis Longus runs around the radius. So these are almost in their own grouping. So the nerves are thrown out the door, the origin is thrown out the door. These are all in their own. These don't have the same commonalities as the other ones. So these are almost going to be more straight memorization. So the origin is a commonality among the deep muscles, however. So, and there's also going to be some similar arteries and nerves. So for the origin, it's the anterior interosseous membrane, which is just a membrane in the deep layers. The nerves and arteries is going to be the anterior interosseous membranes, anterior interosseous arteries, and anterior interosseous nerves. So that's important to that's important to know, and that's going to be a common from the Flexor Pollicis Longus to the Quadratus, and also the Digitorum. So this one here, so it inserts at the thumb. So we were kind of wondering, why didn't the Flexor Carpi Radialis insert at the thumb? How come it inserted at digits 2 and 3? Well, the Flexor Pollicis Longus, it inserts at the 5th digit. So or fifth digit. So it flexes the thumb at the metaphalange and distal phalangeal joints. So it kind of goes like that, and it can flip me back there. So that's what it does. Pretty simple. It's not too big of a deal. So it inserts at the base of the distal flanks of the thumb, and then it moves the thumbs at the distal and metaphalangeal joints. So here and here. So cool. That's one of them. And then we're gonna have the Flexor Digitorum Profundus. Flexor Digitorum Profundus. And this one's a big muscle. So this one's gonna, and it helps your, I'm gonna talk about it right now, it helps digits 2 through 5, phalanges 2 through 5. So inserts at the bases of distal and middle phalanges 2 through 5. The nerve is the radial nerve, which is really odd, I find, but in the ulnar, so it is innervated by 2. It's odd because of the fact that I would have thought, if just taking the exam, it'd be the anterior interosseous nerve or artery, because it's so deep in the muscle, but I think it's just such a big muscle, and it is really big. When you see it, it's a bigger muscle. It has a radial nerve and ulnar nerve. So it branches out into 2 heads. The part of the muscle that goes towards your radial side is going to be your radian nerve, and then your the muscle that goes out towards your ulnar is going to be your ulnar, innervated by your ulnar nerve. So that's how you can tell the difference. I have it kind of blocked off here. So this one would be the radial, innervated by the radial nerve. This would be innervated by the ulnar nerve. So the action is the flexion of distal phalanges 2 through 5. So it's almost flexion. So yeah, you do that. All right, cool. And then so I didn't have enough space to write it out, but Pronator Quadratus muscle is pretty interesting. So it's almost like a block. It's straight up it's like a cube. It's not huge. This is definitely the biggest deep muscle, but it is a cube in your arm. And as the name states, pronator, it pronates. So supinates, pronates, so it helps do this. It's innervated by the anterior interosseous nerve. Its artery supply is the anterior interosseous artery, and its origin. So its origin is it originates at the ulna, and then it inserts at the radius. So it comes over and it flaps over, and this is the deepest of the three muscles. So you'll see both the profundus or digitorum profundus, and you'll also see the pollicis longus before you see the pronator quadratus. Cool. Yeah, sorry I couldn't have space to write that out, but that'll be in the notes as well in the link below. But it's a very interesting muscle, and its main function in the name, pronator quadratus, because it's a cube, it's a square. So cool. So remember, main thing to know is pass fail. That gets you started. So that's pronator teres, flexor carpi radialis, palmaris longus, and then flexor carpi ulnaris. Know your commonalities. The origins is really easy for that. You have all the nerves. It's median nerves for all the superficial. You have the same artery supply for all the deep muscles. So know the commonalities, but know the exceptions. The exceptions is what's going to throw you off. Yeah, so this is what it is. 4, 3, 1, 4 minus 1 equals 3, so 4, 1, 3. Best way to memorize this stuff is writing it out and just going over it and grinding through it. I like testing myself on my own body. I think that's one of the easier ways you see it better. Cool thing, palmaris longus is absent in 14% of the population. That's a cool little fact. But other than that, that'll be all for today. Thank you guys very much. I will leave this up here for a little bit. If you guys want to take screenshots or take notes, in my Word document below will have not this, but a little extra information. But thank you guys for tuning in. It's Adam, Science Tutor, and I'll see you guys next time.